Good evening. I'd like to call the regular meeting, School Board, Royal Oak, December 14th, 2023. Call us to order. And we'd like to stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, standing approval items. Item number 3.1, acceptance of the agenda. Do we have any additions or deletions? Seeing none, agenda is approved by consensus. Item number 3.2, approval of minutes. Do we have a recommendation, please? Mr. Jaworski?
Like anyone? All right, be resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the following minutes. November 2nd, 2023 special meeting, Finance and Facilities. November 2nd, 2023 special minutes, a board workshop. And November 9th, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Ms. Alexander. Mrs. Anderson, can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Haynes?
Yes.
Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
Trustee Anderson will vote yes. Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzwa?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Moving on to item number 4, public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, a person may address the board on an agenda or non-agenda item by completing a note card located inside the boardroom and place the card in the basket prior to the citizen public comment period. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. If you need more time, you are offered a second opportunity to address the board at the end of the meeting with an additional 3 minutes. Please address the board as a whole and not individually. Public comment is not intended for the exchange of dialogue. This is a time for members of the public to express their views. We are paying attention to your comments and appreciate them. However, school board members do not respond to public comment during the meeting. Questions that arise for public comment shall be referred to the superintendent or their designee for review, study, and possible future response. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. Thank you. We have no public comment this evening. Moving on to item number 5, 5.1, Philip Merrill Presidential Scholar and Mentors. Mrs. Fitzpatrick.
Thank you very much. It's always important for us that we hear from our students, especially after they graduate. And so this evening, we're honored to have Hannah Ziegler back to talk about one of her teacher mentors, Mr. Chisnell from Royal Oak High School, who has also retired from our district. But given this special scholar award and her naming of her mentor, I'd like to call both Mr. Chisnell and Hannah up to give us a little information about this special award and special recognition. So thank you both for coming here this evening. And Hannah, if you would, please share with us what's this all about. And we're so glad to have you here. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. So my name's Hannah Ziegler. I'm a class of 2020 graduate from Royal Oak High School. I was in Royal Oak schools my whole entire life. And now I'm a senior at the University of Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. So this past, 6 months or so, I was named the Philip Merrill Presidential Scholar for the Journalism College at the University of Maryland. Around 20 students every year who are seniors are given that award. It's chosen based on how many students are in your academic college, so there's only one in the entire journalism school each year, so I'm your girl for that. So as part of that award, I am honored through a ceremony at our president's wonderful house on campus, and given a little plaque, but most importantly, I'm able to select a teacher mentor, both at the journalism school where I attend now and from high school, who really helped me, get to the point where I'm able to contend for awards like these. So I selected Mr. Chisnell, who was my 2-time English teacher, Model UN advisor, and kind of every single thing in between throughout my high school years, and through this now, there is now a $1,500 scholarship that goes to the district, to another person who attends the University of Maryland in the future, to kind of build that relationship between school districts that send, really thriving students to the University of Maryland, and the university itself, to try to, build good pipelines and be able to recognize good mentorship and good students equally in terms of that. So yeah, just really excited to be able to tell you all about that, and very happy to have Mr. Chisnell here. And he came out to the ceremony for me back in November I was surprised. I wasn't supposed to be surprised, apparently, to come support me through that. So I was just so honored, and I'm so honored to be able to share that with the school district that kind of helped me get to the place that I am today. So, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Chisnell, is there something you'd like to share with us?
My students know that I'm going to be their fan no matter what, all the way through, and I'm so excited to share this honor with Hannah. I think the best part for me, outside of being able to see where she built her university life and successes, the newspaper, the campus, all the places that she worked and built this reputation, was listening to the president of the university, the colleges and the college heads of college and deans talk right there in front of her about her possibilities going forward. And while I won't share all the different irons that she has in the fire for what's next for her, rest assured you've heard of all these places in a big way. So wherever she ends up, it's going to be something really, really cool. They said repeatedly she is in the top 1% of the University of Maryland. And that is a much earned distinction from her. So I'm just very proud to share that moment with her.
Thank you. So Hannah, I understand as part of this there were an internship or research projects, or at all. Would you like to share a few details about what you did personally as a part of this selection?
Yeah, so kind of in order to get the honor, the journalism college kind of plucks a few different students from, across the ranks and stuff, and we just send our resumes, and then it's kind of up to them from there. A lot of teachers advocating for different folks and stuff like that. I would not want to be in that room ever. But yeah, so I sent in my resume. So since, leaving Royal Oak High School and going on to the University of Maryland, I've been a data and graphics intern at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, doing some great journalism there. Obviously, that was in Atlanta. Last summer, I had the absolute honor of interning in New York City at Barron's, which is the sister publication of the Wall Street Journal. And those are kind of my two big things in school. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Diamondback, which is our independent student newspaper. And I've also been able to do a lot of work experience down in Washington, D.C., since we're so close in proximity there. So I think those are kind of the things that help me stand out a little bit. I've been able to keep a 4.0 GPA through all of this. I'll have 2 degrees in the spring. So I've been very busy, not nearly as busy as I was in high school somehow. But yeah, those are kind of all the things that I think made the faculty at Merrill College of Journalism really see the good parts of me and, honor me with this award. So very, very lucky.
So one more question for you, and then I will ask the board members if they have questions. But is there something that stands out in your experience at Royal Oak High School that you think really provided you with that support and kind of a launch for success at your university?
Yeah, I think trying to think back on all of those moments is very, very nostalgic for me. I think that both Mr. Chisnell and another mentor of mine, Ann Maudlin, who's still at the high school, she wasn't able to make it tonight, but I adore her and I adore Mr. Chisnell. And I think both of those teachers in particular really helped me grow my love for writing and grow my love for journalism in a lot of ways. I was the editor-in-chief of Acorn, and then being able to go from Acorn to, one of the biggest college newspapers in the country and be able to thrive there. I owe that all to Miss Maudlin. And Mr. Chisnell, in a lot of ways, just really, I said this in my little speech, back in November, but Mr. Chisnell's class was the very first English class that I sat down in, my first hour of high school ever in Honors English 9. And then on that bad March day in 2020, that was the very last class that I had in the school day. So very first experience in high school, very last experience in high school. And I genuinely believe in every single way that between those two moments, Mr. Chisnell taught me how to think and learn properly and, empathize with others through Model UN and through, sometimes crazy assignments in English class, but always worth it. So I think like those two teachers in particular really, really, uplifted me and helped me, find my voice and find my passions and figure out what I wanted to do for my career. And I think without them, I would not have, chosen University of Maryland. I wouldn't have wanted to go to Washington, D.C. I wouldn't have been able to get any of the internships that I've gotten. So I'm so grateful for those two folks in particular.
Thank you. Thank you. Other questions?
Mrs. Anderson?
I just want to say how happy I am that students like you are going into journalism. I think journalism is vital to our democracy and our country, and I just love hearing all your experiences, and it's just great, so thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think, Mr. Chisnell, I've known you for a little bit. And Hannah, I remember you, and I remember your mom. We're grateful to have teachers that, students are able to talk about in that way. That's so critical, and it says a lot to the staff in our school district and how important it is to have that kind of a relationship with your teacher, too, that just, aspire to and go beyond what you know that you can do. So I thank you both for being here, and congratulations on behalf of all of us. So that's just an amazing thing, so thank you.
Thank you.
I grabbed a picture, and Hannah, you brought some with you tonight.
Yeah, my mom's here.
Oh, yeah.
That's for Mom, yeah. Go
Mom,
Mom.
you guys want to stand by the podium and get the Royal Oak School flag? Take a picture real quickly.
Mr. Walensky, Mom works in the district too, correct? So, Mrs. Bella, sorry. Thank you.
Yes, Hannah's mom works in food service at Royal Oak High School.
Well, thank you all for being here, and we'll look forward to reading something that you've written somewhere. So, thank you. Item 5.2, Princeton Lockett, author of Secret of Wolves. Miss Dr. Ioannis.
Thank you, Mrs. Van Heidsma. This is fitting. We're going to continue to highlight Royal Oak students and their writing ability. We are very honored and privileged to have Princeton Lockett here, fourth grade student Ed Keller, and Mrs. Dryden is here to support him and Mom as well. And we're going to learn a little bit about this phenomenal young author that we have in our district.
Well, thank you for having us. First, let me describe Princeton for you. Princeton is a caring, kind, very humble student. He's an excellent student and an even better friend to his peers. So I feel that him being here right now, I want you to just understand how humble he is and how shy he is. And so to be in the spotlight like this, to be showcased that he's very nervous. And so I'm here to help him like a proud school mom. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about how this all came about, and then I'm going to turn it over to Princeton. And I might have to kind of help him share some of the details for you, okay? So often kids will come to me and say, Mrs. Dryden, I wrote a book. That's what happened with Princeton. I remember Princeton running down the hallway, Mrs. Dryden, I wrote a book. And I said, wow, that's awesome, Princeton. You need to share it with me. I'd love to read it and hear all about it. Now, typically when students write a book, it's maybe with copy paper that's folded in half with staples down the side with, pictures and a little story that goes with it. And I waited and waited to see the book, show up. And then I got an email from Princeton's beautiful mom, Ebony, who invited me to a book launch. And she sent me this photo of his book and with his picture and just an introduction of his book launch. And I went, whoa, we're talking, this is a book. So then I went back and I go, Princeton, you did write a book. And it was top secret. Mom didn't share with Princeton that I was going to show up. But when I went to his book signing, he had lots of friends from school and their families show up, and myself. And it was just so lovely. His family was there. I walked by, and my husband and I walked by, and I hear somebody say, "That's Princeton's principal." And I turned and I went, "Where?" So it was just, the whole family is humble, and the whole family is just fantastic. And I was so excited to be able to showcase Princeton because he is so humble. This isn't something he would go around and brag about. So how about we start with Princeton? Why don't you share what grade you're in and who's your teacher?
My name's Princeton Lockett. The grade I am is 5th grade, and my teacher is Miss Strong.
Is Mrs. Strong, right? Mrs. Strong wanted to be here tonight, but she had another commitment. So why don't you go back and just talk a little bit about, I imagine everybody's first question is, like, where did this all start? Like, how did you even come up with, ideas or even putting thoughts on paper? Like, how did that all start?
At first, it started off as a rough draft, but then my aunt looked it over and said, "This should be a book." So then I thought about it and started writing it a little bit more, and then now it's a published book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
So why don't you go back and tell them about when you were in 4th grade with your classroom teacher, Mrs. DeWolf.
When I was in 4th grade with my classroom teacher, Miss DeWolf, it wasn't really a class assignment, more like a rough draft. It took a while because I had to go through the stages of writing it through the summer sometimes, and I'm proud of the Secrets of the Wolves, and now I'm writing another book, and the name's gonna be Secret of the Wolves: Rise of the Vampires.
I know, pretty cool, huh? Do you want to share with them what the book's about and how you came about with how you developed the story?
The book is about a boy who goes into a haunted mansion and gets hit by a curse ray, and it gives him superhuman abilities.
Yeah, do you want to talk about some of the school parts?
In the book, there is some stuff that relates to school, like it's school related, but I wouldn't say it's school related to my school. It's like for other schools, like it's like a plot twist in the story. Like his bully is actually a werewolf too. So it's so they have like a fight towards the end of the story.
Yeah, so at the end, he doesn't want to give you too much because he wants you to buy the book and read the book, right? So when he told me about this bully and he said it was, with school, and of course, the first thing I said, this is not real. This is not what's happening here, right? And he said, no, this is another school. And I said, okay, we want to make sure. So you're looking at writing another series. And you already mentioned how this is available. Yeah. So I heard one of the questions was, did you write this by hand or did you type it?
No, I typed the book.
Because part of your assignment,
yeah.
or not your assignment, but part of,
draft.
yeah. So during his class, he had some extra, they have some time where they can have like indoor recess or just some time to, they call them business breaks sometimes. Andrew remembers because he went to Keller too. They have business breaks, and so he found these pockets of time to work on this Google Doc of these stories. And one of the things that I remember him telling me too is that he had his auntie who helped him through the process, and also to help you publish it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to give a special shout out to your auntie?
My aunt has helped me a lot. Like she gave me some of the ideas to, like when I needed help to brainstorm the ideas, my aunt gave me some of the ideas. So a shout out to my aunt.
That's cute. So Princeton is actually going to be one of our guest authors during March's Reading Month, and we're going to go through, do mini assemblies for each of the different grade levels, and we're going to talk about, and I imagine he won't be as shy in front of some of his peers and the rest of the school, because I told him this too, no matter how old you are and no matter how long you've been doing this is nervous, you're anxious and nervous no matter what. So he's going to be doing this as a special guest instead of bringing in some author and paying for that for an assembly. So we're going to have him go through and just talk about the writing process and going from having thoughts on paper to something actually published. And hopefully, probably not hopefully, I imagine it's going to inspire other writers to want to do the same thing. So I'm very proud of Princeton. I can't say it enough how proud I am of him, and it's an honor to be here to showcase him. And I appreciate the fact that you're bringing students here to talk about writing, because I know a lot of times that's really difficult for students. So to be able to come here and showcase them, I commend you for that. So thank you. And thank you, Princeton, for making Keller look so good.
Does that, okay, Mrs. Haynes.
I'm so excited. We've already got it all queued up on our computers to go purchase copies. What do your friends think about you being a published author?
They're pretty supportive of it, and they're trying to give me ideas for the second one. Like, they're trying to make me add their names inside of it.
So if you want to name a vampire Lisa, I would be okay with that. So yeah, we have it queued up here. I just want to say, like, how great are you? Like, I've wanted to write a book my whole life, and now you just inspired me. I actually wrote down the name of your publisher. Like, that's amazing. So not only are you an inspiration to your peers, you're an inspiration to us adults who are kind of old. But you're just outstanding, and my niece goes to Keller, and that just warms my heart. So congratulations. And Mom, way to go. Great.
Mr. Jaworski.
Like, right, Princeton, I've already beaten Ms. Haynes and Ms. Jasinski because I have your book at my house, and I am so mad that I left it on my kitchen table because I was going to have you sign it for me tonight. But great job. I'm very proud of all the work that you've done and all the work that's happening at Keller as well. Good job, Ms. Dryden.
Thank you. Send it to me. We'll get it signed and get it back to you.
I was actually going to ask, are there copies available at Keller as well, or do you have to purchase through there? Because we of course would want an autographed copy, not.
I do have at least like 20, 30 hard copies at home.
We can work with Mrs. Dryden on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yep. So my plan too is to make sure that we have one in each of our classroom libraries from 3rd through 5th grade. So we'll be doing that too. I have 2 that are assigned. One is for our library and one is for me.
Well, that's very exciting. Oh, Mrs. Cook.
So I just wondered if you have any advice for other aspiring authors who may have a creative idea but feel a little overwhelmed at the idea of making something as full as a book. Do you have any advice for those aspiring authors?
Even if something doesn't go right when you're writing the book, you should still keep on going and follow your dreams.
And I won't cry. Just going to say that. I did have one more question, and I don't know actually if Dr. Ioannis, if you know this, or Mrs. Dryden, do we actually have a writing, like we have many student clubs, which is very cool. Do we have a middle school writing club? Or if we don't, would
For
be.
middle school, I'm not sure. They have a lot of clubs.
Yeah.
A lot of clubs in the middle school, which is fantastic. And usually when it comes to elementary, it's usually student initiated that comes to me wanting a club and we make it happen. I have not had a writing club yet, but maybe that's something we can think about at Keller. I like that idea.
It's a very cool idea. One thing I think a little inspiration I had even at PTA meeting, I'm certain board members would love to join the schools for March's Reading Month, perhaps, if it fits into schedules. I think that would be pretty cool. But, yeah, definitely. Congratulations, Princeton. Thanks for actually talking to me before the meeting, too. That's pretty cool. And thank you, Mom, for encouraging, and Mrs. Dryden for encouraging, and your teacher for encouraging. So it's really inspirational to see kids like you. Thank you.
Mama.
He never lets me get pictures of him.
We'll stand here together. Excellent, thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. So much.
And keep, University of Maryland in the back of your mind. Princeton, same.
You brought me a poinsettia. I mean, come on. Right?
Moving on to item 5.3, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Mrs. Fitzpatrick?
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, that's a tough act to follow, so no pressure there, Ms. Phillips. But so as you know, and as we announced last month, our district did select, and she accepted, the position of DEI coordinator, Ms. Ashley Phillips. So I'd like to invite her up to the podium. Part of the report tonight is really for her to share some of the things that some of us learned at her interviews, but to share it now with our entire district. And for the short time she's been with us in the district, I think she has a few points of work she's already completed and conducted. So I would just like to turn it over to Ashley Phillips and share a little bit about yourself and a little bit about our DEI work here so far in Royal Oak Schools with you at the helm.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And as you said, very tough act to follow. I got to talk to Princeton ahead of time, so he inspired me, but Hannah as well. Just those two things just definitely solidify that I am in the best place ever. So thank you for your inspiration there. And I think we'll be on the screen soon. Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. That is it. Okay, so I'll kind of turn a little bit towards that way as well. I am Ashley Phillips. I was born and raised in, it's okay. I'll pause if that's okay. Okay, to go ahead? Okay. I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. I attained my bachelor's and master's degrees from Hampton University. It's at HBCU in Hampton, Virginia. There we are as well. And before coming to Royal Oak, I was a K-12 educator of 15 years. I was also the DEI teacher leader for Berkeley Schools. Before teaching with K-12, I assisted and observed at Hampton University's Child Development Center, and as well as serving as a supplemental instruction leader for Wayne State University. So I've seen students of all ages. As I said before, when I met a few of the board members and before we started, Royal Oak already feels like home, and that's what I want it to feel like for all of our employees, for all of our students, and our community as well, where it feels just like home. So you see the older picture of Adams Elementary with the heart in the door there, and the same thing with the home there. So speaking of home, coming back to Royal Oak is just like welcoming home for me, a homecoming for me. So my Royal Oak roots are where I started with my very first job at either 14 or 15 in Royal Oak. And you're about to see my very first badge. I worked at Arby's Royal Oak at 13 Mile and Woodward, at the home of hospitality and, of course, great roast beef. So my store manager there, Susan Lomax, always stressed hospitality, customer service, and that When a customer came into our door for our dining room, that our dining room felt like their dining room at home. If a customer pulled into our drive-through, we gave them a 3-second greeting with a smile and made them feel right at home. So that has stuck with me with every job that I've had throughout my career. I also took private lessons, cello lessons in the city with Timothy Nicolia, and I had orchestra performances here as well. So I was meeting with Angela Ashburn the other day, and she dropped the name Don Darrow High School, and it automatically brought back all of the orchestra nostalgia. I remembered the name immediately there, so I'm coming back home. So let's dive a little deeper quickly. This is just my philosophy of DEI. The D, diversity, unique identities, perspectives, backgrounds, abilities, and perceptions. E, equity, everyone receiving access to what they need to be successful. And I, inclusion, everyone feels welcomed, valued, seen, and heard. My personal passion for DEI. As I've said before, I was a K through 12 teacher. I taught music specifically. So you'll see here a lot of my students and our performances, and I always love to be a voice for them on and off the stage as well. And there we were after receiving the J. Towers WNIC Teacher of the Week Award a couple of months ago. Even closer to home, when I was about 16, my aunt had her first son, and he and her, they moved in with us. So he was raised with me as a little brother. Around the age of maybe 3 for him, we noticed that he wasn't speaking much and that he wasn't answering to his name at all. So my grandmother became very worried that he had a hearing impairment. Probably around 5 or 6, he was officially diagnosed with autism, so I was able to see Terry grow through every stage and go through every school, and it reminded me never to put limits on anything, because in 2021, I was able to attend his high school graduation, and he graduated from high school in Detroit. Even closest to home is my own daughter, who in 2029 will be crossing the stage. This is her kindergarten picture there. I always make sure to instill lots of confidence in her, and she's been in situations where I, as a parent, can relate to the need for DEI and making sure that she always had her voice heard in her classroom and in any setting that she's been in. So I make sure to expose her to so many different opportunities and to make sure that she can learn as much as she can learn. Here she is with her Royal Oak roots. She takes a black belt training class here, and I believe this was a stripe test that you'll see part of her receiving her stripe. And here's the belt test, there we go. So I've done my mom part of adding her portion here, and she gets her ice cream as a reward for that. She also loves the stage and music just like me, and her even closer Royal Oak roots is that for her summer program, for her ice skating club, she skates right at Lindale Arena. So continuing diversity, here are some future plans, diving deeper into the most current data, identifying and addressing any iniquities, building relationships, which I believe is key, assess the past audits, continue to build on what has worked well, survey the community, use data to implement needed amendments and additions, collaborate with the Spec Ed, MTSS, RTI, and JEDI teams, and community collaborations and events. So here's a glimpse at the first 14 days. Today is day 14 for me. I've done some community introductions via publications, working with our communications department, and social media interview with one of our high school journalism students, Sam Clunky. That was very fabulous on Facebook Live. Meeting, planning, and building relationships. This has been with administrators, teams, staff members, and I've been around the city, so I've just got 2 buildings to go. I've attended JEDI meetings for 2 schools. Met with an ASL company to discuss further partnership opportunities with us and their company for American Sign Language, assisting with the planning of MLK Day event that's coming up very soon, and we have some amazing things planned for it. I presented to the ROM staff and attended the Oakland Schools JEDI Council training / meeting, which was this morning. So it's been a pretty busy couple of weeks, but they have been very productive, and I feel right at home. And we've also initiated our gratitude challenge. Our board office is taking part of it in our break room, but it's also been sent out to all of the schools. So some of them are doing it in their school buildings as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Oh, Mrs. Haynes?
I'm just glad you're here, and I just love the fact that your roots are kind of here too.
Thank you.
So you really are invested, and just so excited you're here. And
Thank you.
congratulations, and that's it in 2 weeks? I mean, wow. So, no, just congratulations and welcome.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else? If not, I have questions, so Mrs. Anderson.
I just want to say welcome as well.
Thank you.
We're just really happy that you're here.
Thank you.
I'll start with congratulations and welcome. We're glad to have you here. Glad to see that you've done so much in 2 weeks' time period. I'm actually excited to see about the ASL partnership.
Yes.
So I know that I've heard it, assorted PTAs throughout our district, even, that, our PTAs struggle with having ASL at PTA meetings. And so I'm actually excited to hear more about that when you delve into that further. And our PTAs also have a DEI committee as well. And I know that committee is actually looking forward to meeting with you as well. So, I'm just excited to, and I just love your picture of you and your daughter. I said that earlier. So, but yeah, we're just excited for, this work to keep going and to keep it pushing forward. And I like that you have all these ideas already. So we're very, very happy to have you here. So welcome and thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sorry, Mrs. Fitzpatrick.
Thank you. Well, in addition to these meetings, there are a number of initiatives that are ongoing within the district, and I will applaud Ms. Phillips because she immediately began to ask about things that we already have occurring and where she could help move them along even in 14 days. But one of those things is the development of the District Jedi Council, which is meeting, and that first meeting is coming up on this Monday for her to attend for the school year. And I know Dr. Ioannis is working closely with Ms. Phillips as well, and she'll get to meet our Jedi Council here across the district as well as assist the Jedi groups from each school. So I'm very excited for her to join that group along with Mrs. Nipper and as I said, Dr. Ioannis, to keep that work moving. We also are making plans to, one of the things that we're looking at, researching more deeply and seeing her thoughts on would be the district's long-range plan, where the diversity, equity, and inclusion was something that we wanted to be a lens that we use to look at everything that we do in the district. And so as the coming weeks move now into January, we'll be taking a closer look at those goals and action plans as well. So welcome to you, and we're also very glad you're here.
I did think of one more thing because it's me. And seeing our students here. So I know one of the things that we had talked about for Jedi before was having a student voice as part of that. And wanted to ask, how does that fit into your future plans for Jedi?
So, and
if you can, thank you.
The great thing is I've already met with Angela Ashburn, and she's reached out to the students. So we will have lots of student input because you all are the center of everything that we do for Royal Oak Schools. So I'm so excited that they're joining on board and giving us a student's perspective.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5.4, student representatives to the board. Between Alex and Matthew, I don't know who wants to go first.
Well, hello everyone. Just last week Thursday, we had our second school board lunch, and it was reasonably well attended. We had it in the Roost, so I'd just like to thank Ms. Jasinski, Mr. Jaworski, and Ms. Fitzpatrick for attending, and Chartwell for accommodating that. I believe we had some pretty fruitful conversation, especially in regards to club formation at the high school and also sort of how the district manages its technology and applications. The general consensus that I was getting from the students that were invited, and some of them were club founders and club leaders, as am I, was that there needs to be maybe a clearer way of setting up a club or a clearer format for founding a club, because many of the younger students, including some ninth graders who wanted to found clubs, were struggling to find the correct framework to set up their club and to, use online tools to create websites, to create discussion platforms, and also recently a number of those applications have been blocked, partially due to violating privacy acts that cannot be bypassed by the school district, but also others for reasons that have not been made completely clear to club leadership. So I think we had a constructive conversation, and going forward, we'd like to see a little bit more communication from the proper channels about how to properly set up your club so it's in complete compliance with district policy. So I think it was overall a great success. Once again, thanks to everybody who helped make it possible. And for those maybe watching at home who are eager to attend the next event, it'll be coming out pretty shortly when it will be, and we'd love to have you there.
Good evening. Been working on the building level lately for issues regarding OSTC students and the doors being locked when they're coming in midday, AM OSTC students. Through working with building administration, we found there's some policy issues with school safety regarding opening doors for that, so I'm just going to continue to work with members of the administration for the school district and work towards a resolution or something that works for the students and staff. Thank you.
Thank you both. Any questions for our students? Well, I want to thank you guys for taking this leadership role, engaging with the students, doing the recruitment efforts for our student lunches. I have to say that Mrs. Anderson and I were able to attend one, Mr. Chahorsky and Ms. Kuczynski were able to. And so we continue to find ways to improve the recruitment efforts of that, and just to hear more student voice, because, this is your school, this is your district, and we see little people that are, the future of that school and district. So I just want to give you a huge shout out for doing the work that you guys do, and for having the confidence to just meet with administration and bring issues forward, because that's huge, right? That's important that you have that ability to do that and feel comfortable doing it. So we're very grateful for that. I know all of us are very grateful for that. So yeah, so thank you, and continue, and we'll, figure out, we've made some other enhancements for lunches, because the way we had it structured, it was one lunch period every lunchtime, and I think I asked a couple of the board members, and we, the option of sitting all three lunches, since we're there anyhow, just to try to have a greater reach of students is important. So, yeah, so thank you for being advocates. It's appreciated. Moving on to item 6, communications. Mrs. Anderson.
We've had a couple since our last meeting. Debbie Taylor regarding ROMs, and Kyle Kelly regarding a situation at Oak Ridge Elementary.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, consent agenda. As of this point, we have item 7.1, payment of expenses, item 7.2, field trips, and that is the totality of our consent agenda. Any additions, deletions? Mr. Chahorsky.
May I ask a question, and then I'll make that decision? Mrs. Patrick, was the concerns raised about the field trip transportation payments, was that addressed prior to our approval of these?
The question that was asked is whether, and that was actually one of the topics brought up at our student board luncheon, and that was whether or not there's assistance for field trips so that students don't have to pay for all of them. I'm working with Dr. Ioannis, and I had indicated at the lunch, yes, that we have a grant that helps to fund field trips for students. And we were looking to, because this field trip was coming up quickly, we're looking at ways to reimburse the students for that payment equitably across the high school, because we did have a per pupil allotment. But yes, we are working on that.
Perfect.
Yes.
Anything further, Mr. Chahorsky?
No, not at all. Thank you.
Okay, consent agenda passed. Moving on to item number 8, matters for discussion action. Superintendent, Mrs. Fitzpatrick.
Thank you. As you know, the board policies and guidelines for the administrators are on our website, and it is a responsibility of both the board and of me to keep those policies up to date. We are contracted with Neola to review those policies on a regular basis for changes that might have come through the legislature in terms of things that we must change for policies, as well as other things that we review and benchmark it against our best practices here in the district. I had an opportunity to meet with the committee of board members regarding the recommended policy changes. Tonight, those policies and administrative guidelines are recommended for consideration this evening as the first reading of those. And so I bring those forth as presented in your packet.
Thank you. Ms. Yashinsky.
Resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the first reading of the policies and administrative guidelines being revised, replaced, and/or recommended as presented.
Discussion? Oh, second, sorry. Thank you. Mrs. Cook.
I would like to pull 40 so that we can have more information about the current state of the law. There is law that is that will be enacted in June, and so I want more information before putting this policy through.
So I want to confirm then with you, Ms. Cook, that it is policy 1540, which is in reference to administrative staff reduction and recall language. It also refers to MCL 380.1248, and that portion of the school code, as it reads for teachers, would go into effect, as you said, on July the 1st. So it is not one of the immediate action laws that will go in, but it is deferred until the next school year. So that's the policy you're referring to.
Any, Mr. Jaworski?
Along with the recommendation of Mrs. Cook, I would like to remove from that list for approval tonight 7217 and 7370.01 for further review by that committee.
I'm sorry, Mr. Jaworski, could you repeat the second policy that you were referring to?
Second policy is PO 7217.
What was the other one?
First one was that was my second one, I'm sorry, 7370.01.
For clarification, which policies, yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, sorry, just for clarification though about what I guess Ms. Trustee Cook and Trustee Jaworski want. Since this is the first reading, we're not approving anything, right? This just is acknowledging that the policy committee met, discussed these, and we'll have more of a chance to talk about them.
Correct. My thought is, though, that this is the first reading, and there's not much time between this meeting and the next meeting to have those changes presented. I don't want to be in a situation where we're faced with forcing these changes in a meeting and trying to memorialize what we're saying in the meeting or voting no on those. I think if they're adjusted prior to coming to the board, it'll be a much simpler process.
So what we're saying is we want them to go back to the policy for additional review. Is that what we're saying, just for clarity?
Yes.
Do I need to amend my recommendation then?
Yes.
Can I just
Oh,
quickly,
Mrs.
so can you just outline a little bit for us, the reasoning for taking these off? I'm just.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me look at the wording. The 7217, the policy regarding weapons on school property, I would like those who to be adjusted within that language. I don't know that all the people listed in that language are necessarily people who should be carrying weapons upon school property.
In the other policy as well, did you want clarification on that, Mrs. Anderson, or not? What the concerns or questions are? 7370.
Wait, skip the 2 on that. Yeah, with that one, I had questions, and I just want that to be a little clearer for those reading it. I don't think it's real clear for in particular, or for others who might be reading that policy. I don't think they'll fully understand what the scope of that really is. It is a question. I can communicate that to the committee.
Mrs. Cook.
I can say as well for policy 2370.01 that I would like to look into more what the scope of what the district is allowed beyond the minimum requirements of the law before putting that policy through as well.
And regarding online learning?
Yes.
So, Mrs. Van Heijs, if I hear it correctly, and I'll work with the policy committee, policies 1540, policy 7217, and policy 2370.01 would be pulled from the consideration. First reading this evening, we can reconvene a committee, the policy committee meeting to answer the questions that the board members have, and then bring those forward as first reading in January. The remaining policies and administrative guidelines then would move forward through the first reading tonight as presented, and then we would present the second reading for those at the January meeting.
Okay, thank you. And then those with questions, if they could send them to Mrs. Fitzpatrick, and she will assure, or, make sure that the committee gets that, and they will schedule time for that conversation. And so, Ms. Usinski, if you can just restate that, that recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah, do I need to read off all these numbers, though? Okay, so let me get this right. Okay. The Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves a first reading of the following policies and administrative guidelines. AG 2623.01, AG 8500D, P0, wait, no. Not the next two, yeah. So P07217 and P0, oh geez. P08531. Got that, Deb?
Quickly, can we have a second? Mrs. Haynes. Can we have a roll call, Mrs. Anderson?
Trustee Jasinski.
Yes.
Trustee Cook.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Trustee Jaworski.
Yes.
Trustee Alexander.
Yes.
Trustee Haynes.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Trustee Van Heidsma votes yes.
I'm sorry. It carries unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to item 8.2, curriculum and instruction. Dr. Ioannis?
Thank you, Mrs. Van Heidsma. We're going to, very shortly here, show our insight into learning curriculum video series. It'll focus on our Trails program. So the Trails program we have provides services and opportunities of learning for students in the age range of 18 to 26. And these students are really focusing on functional academics, math and reading, and daily living skills. They also have opportunities to take on some work-based learning opportunities within the community, again, with the goal of helping them have these functional skills that are helpful for all of us to have in life. So we will turn our attention to that video, and we'll watch that here very shortly.
The purpose of Trails, which is our adult transition program at Royal Oak, is to meet the students where they're at and move them forward. It's for students between the ages of 18 and 26 years old that are not on a path for diploma. Rather, they're on the path for certificate of completion.
For us, the main function or the main role of the program is really three components. We focus on functional academics, meaning for us, it's a lot of reading in terms of community signs, reading directions for a cooking recipe. Functional academics for us is math, so math in terms of time, money.
The whole aspect of Trails for Functional Academics is that we are really trying to take these skills like reading and writing and math, and we're implementing them for the community and for adulthood. So for reading, that we're reading when we're out in a restaurant, being able to order for yourself, read those menus, know the prices, working on budgeting, so whether we're at Meyer or they're buying something at lunch maybe downtown for Royal Oak, they are able to work on those skills in the moment and be able to gain independence with it, with support with staff to increase their independence and for adulthood.
We also work on worksite-based learning. Through worksite-based learning, students have the opportunity to work at different stores, places of business in the community. They have the opportunity to work there for a year long. So meaning 5 days a week, students have the opportunity to work for a couple hours at their worksite.
Students in the Trails program develop real-world experiences through being in the community businesses that are housed in Royal Oak. So we have students working hard at Imagine Theater, Beaumont Hospital, the Senior Center by Royal Oak High School, Ace Hardware, Hollywood Market, and we've had students in other community settings as well.
Lastly, we work on daily living skills. So daily living skills at Trails looks like cooking at school every week on Thursdays, going to work out at Planet Fitness twice a week on Mondays and Wednesdays, and everything else that comes up in terms of how to best be a member, a contributing member of the community.
The community-based instruction, I think, is the greatest aspect of Trails, and what makes us so different from other adult transition programs that I know of is we have experience in the community more than 50% of the day. Every single day of the week, students are going out in the community, whether it is we're going to Planet Fitness, working out twice a week, we are going to get groceries every Tuesday at a Meyer, we are going every other Friday to downtown Royal Oak and exploring the community, or every of the other Fridays we are going on a field trip, so anywhere in the community. So whether it's maybe a field trip to a stadium, or we're exploring, we just went to a Ford Roof factory tour, Greenfield Village, for example. Just getting those life skills, opportunities that they might not have elsewhere. So getting out in the community and instructing while you're out there.
Students in Trails and their families can connect with community agencies through working with our transition coordinator that is part of the Trails program. Community agencies might include Michigan Rehabilitation Services, MORC, Easter Seals, Community Living Services, and others that provide services outside of the school day and beyond age 26. And navigating those agencies and more is something that the Trails program works to make a connection with the students, the parents, and those agencies and help that process begin.
Going to Planet Fitness, eating lunch, and going downtown Royal Oak.
Going to Planet Fitness, going downtown Royal Oak, and with friends, teachers, staff, going to Oakland University, with Mr. John, going to Blake's Orchard, Samuel.
My college trails, I'm gonna be lookout, Planet Fitness. I'm gonna be going to Holiday Market.
My favorite part of the trails was Planet Fitness, Myers, go to town, the Royal Oak, to the library, and then also stories.
Definitely a special thank you to all of our staff members that work with our Trails program and our Trails students. As you can see, they're gaining very valuable life experiences, and we're excited to see them continue that work. I wanted to just highlight a few more things. Our supervisor of continuous improvement, Mrs. Nipper, has been working on a program called Beyond the Bell. Part of the purpose for this program was initially to capture some of that learning loss that's been taking place across the nation, and providing after-school programming and opportunities for students in our district at the K-12 level. So I wanted to just briefly share some updates on some of those programs that have been taking place so far this year. So Cranbrook Science has been coming once a month to each of our buildings, elementary and ROMs, I should say. And these opportunities are provided by Cranbrook. Their staff comes to those buildings, and we have a set number of students at each of those buildings that are engaging in these science activities. They're really focusing on exploration with some of the science materials that are being brought, and they're getting an opportunity to also collaborate and use the claim evidence and reasoning instructional model and approach. The other program that we have started is called Pretty Brown Girls. This is started in November at ROMS and at the high school. Unfortunately, we know in our society that there's a severe underrepresentation of positive messages and images regarding Black and brown students, and this can definitely affect academic achievement for our female Black and brown students. So this program really provides an opportunity for those students to have a safe place to express their feelings, to learn and grow, and to be able to dream big and have all opportunities opened up for them. That is a program that's coordinated and taught by staff members in the district as well. And we've previously talked about the K-12 Connect Math Tutoring program, which is taking place K-12, and we will have online tutoring opportunities to hopefully help improve some of our math instruction. Again, this was all focused on capturing and recovering learning loss. A lot of grant money that Mrs. Nipper has been able to work with to provide these opportunities, and some upcoming ones, the Detroit Zoo. There's going to be a Cranbrook High School internship opportunity for those students, and a video production club. So stay tuned for more of these opportunities, and we are excited about the Beyond the Bell program and what it's providing for all of our students at all levels. And those are all the updates I have.
Any questions for Dr. Ioannis? I do have to give kudos to the Trails program. I saw the Trails at work, I think it was probably a year ago, maybe within the last year, and I stopped to talk to all the students, and they were just like super excited to be on site and to have a job, and just so positive. And so I'm grateful that we're able to provide this program for those individuals, and that they love it. And I guess I'll just look for them at Planet Fitness. And who thought Planet Fitness was such a popular spot? But just kudos to that team for the work that they do. And I'm just so glad that we're able to offer that program within our district. So thank you. Moving on to item 8.3, Finance, Facilities, and Bond. Mrs. Abella.
Good evening. I have two things on tonight's agenda for your consideration. The first is 8.3.1. It is General Fund Amendment Number 1. You'll see here on the presentation, I have the audited numbers from the 22-23 for the 22-23 school year. The original budget for the 23-24 school year, which was approved at the end of June of 2023, and then the budget amendment tonight for your consideration. There have been a lot of changes. We approved this back in June, like I said, before the state budget was completed, before we had ORS rates, before there were many things that we were sure about. So all of those things have been included in this budget. We had 50 staff changes, I think, since last June. It's probably more. So all of those are included in this budget. Our finance system is very comprehensive for every staff member that's in there. It calculates what the rest of their contract is for the remaining of the year. So we're very confident with the numbers that are included here. So just to consider revenues, the changes that went on within the revenues, you'll see that there's approximately $3 million more that we have budgeted in local revenue. And the primary part, $2.6 million of that, is due to taxes. And we talk about the foundation allowance and the pie that comes with that. Part of it is collected through local taxes, part of it comes by, and comes in by foundation allowance, and then of course we have our hold harmless millage as well. So property taxes for the school district of Royal Oak have gone up considerably compared to the foundation allowance. So more was collected locally. You'll also notice that the state portion has gone down, not at the same rate that the local went up, and that is primarily due to the grants that we've also collected. So while the portion of the foundation allowance went down, that same $2.6 million, we had other grants that are state funded that were added in. The one that's probably most notable would be the at-risk grant, and then the at-risk carryover from last year, and the carryover alone was over $400,000. So that's why they're not up and down exactly the same. We did review this amendment last week at Finance and Facilities, and I told you that there was going to be changes with the grants, and they are. Dr. Ioannis, Ms. Nipper, and I worked on several grants and got those amendments to those applications completed at the end of last week. 11T, which is the second portion we got for ESSER 3, was $2.1 million, and we also submitted an amendment for the actual ESSER 3 grant, which was $500,000. So those dollars are added into this grant, which you did not see when we went in there last week. So that's gone up about $2.7 million over what we discussed last week, and it was all grant funding. I have a lot of notes. I got to tell you, there's like thousands of lines, and I have been swimming in this for weeks, getting this done. It's sort of like a big puzzle, and when you get it completed, it's, for me, it's my thing, so I think it's quite beautiful. So once again, I was telling you the local revenue was amended due to that net increase in property taxes. State revenues were also amended. I wanted to point out that the state revenue change of $74 per pupil was due to the fact that part of our foundation allowance came as a categorical, and it's more stable when it's in the foundation allowance. And it was moved, $74 of that was moved from a categorical right into the foundation allowance. So that's about $370,000. We prefer to always see it in the foundation allowance. There was a reduction in our student count of 13 students, so that went down 132,000. I did see the numbers for our October student count. It did get updated in our December state aid payment, but this was already processed and complete, so our student count did go up. So it's going down during this amendment. We're going to pick up those students in the March amendment. Federal grants were all amended to reflect actual awards. The only one that's left is the consolidated application amendment. I believe went in early this week, so I wasn't able to capture those. No large changes. If anything, it just changes the groupings where things go, but not the actual dollar value that we collected. And then this is by expenses by object. When we looked at this last week, we talked that the salaries were about $20,000 difference, which was pretty flat considering the number of changes that went on between June and December with staffing. But you'll see there's a much larger change now, and that is due to all that grant funding. So all of the projects Dr. Ioannis has talked about, those additional, whether that's that K-12 Connect, there's going to be a certified Royal Oak teacher in the room, so all of those salaries, those pieces have all been captured in here as well. The benefits change really were due to that increase in the ORS change and then all the grant funding that was associated with those salaries. So all of those were reconciled to match all that revenue funding. I already mentioned that it was ESSER 3 and 11T being the most large of those two. And then it's always interesting to look at how those expenses kind of lay out. 45% of salaries, 35 benefits, and the 14% of purchase services primarily is contracted services, whether that's through EduStaff, Durham, ABM, Oakland Schools Technology. Like I said, the largest portion of that purchase services are also people. So much of our budget, almost all of it, all but 8%, is spent on the human element here at Royal Oak Schools. Are there any questions about the amendment? If not, that's 8.3.1, and then I have another recommendation for you after that.
Can I have a recommendation, Mrs. Alexander?
Be it resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the 2023 to 2024 General Fund Amendment Number 1 as presented.
Can I have a second? Mrs. Haynes, Mrs. Anderson, can we have a roll call?
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
Trustee Haynes?
Yes.
Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
The motion passes.
And then 8.3.2 is a contract for Adams Keller Flooring and for the ROMS lift. If you remember, last month, we approved the contracts for the remaining part of the bond work. These two projects were a little specialized. We pulled them out of the rest of that bid when it went out. We reviewed this in detail last week at the Finance and Facilities meeting, and that is tonight for your consideration.
Can I have a recommendation, please? Mr. Jaworski?
Resolved that the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to finalize and sign a contract with Nationwide Lifts of Michigan for $48,940 for bid category 1 and Shock Brothers Floor Covering Incorporated for $75,325 for bid category 2. Additionally, a 10% contingency to address any unforeseen conditions.
Thank you. Mrs. Cook, second. Can we have a roll call, please?
I will vote yes. Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
Trustee Haynes?
Yes.
Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to 8.4, Staff and Student Services. Mr. Walensky.
Thank you, Mrs. Van Heitzma. I have 2 items on tonight's agenda for your consideration for approval. Item 8.4.1 is the personnel report, which is a list of our personnel changes since we last met. On that report, you will see 6 recommendations for hire, of which 5 will be filling paraprofessional positions, which is good news. We've needed to hire more paraprofessionals. So 5 paraprofessionals as listed, and 1 to assume the role of ASD teacher for Royal Oak Middle School. On that report is also 1 resignation from Brooke Sheena, who was a speech and language, has been serving as a speech and language pathologist for Adams Early Childhood Center.
Thank you. Can I have a recommendation, please? Mrs. Anderson?
Resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education hereby approve the regular personnel changes as listed.
Can I have a second? Mrs. Alexander? Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Okay, the second item on the agenda for your consideration for approval is item 8.4.2, which is a resolution to approve limited schools of choice enrollments for next year in grades K through 8. So for the 2024-25 school year, with the number of enrollments indicated by grade level in that resolution. So we have proposed for your approval 230 spaces of schools in choice, 230 enrollments total in grades K through 8, kindergarten, which includes developmental kindergarten through 8th grade, with the largest percentage of the total being DK and K, 75 children. The remaining 155 spread across 1st grade through 8th grade. And we base those numbers on a real careful analysis of our current enrollment and how many students will likely we anticipate will move, for example, from 1st grade to 2nd grade. So we have a good idea of how many 2nd grade students we're going to have and how many sections we'll need next year, and how many additional students we can add without adding additional teachers or making class sizes larger than desirable. So that's how we come up with those numbers. So we can safely enroll 230 students through schools of choice, though it's unlikely we'll enroll that many based upon, past enrollment trends. Pupil accounting also requires a 15-day window minimum and a 13-day maximum when you accept limited schools of choice enrollment. For some reason, that's a pupil accounting rule. So written into the resolution is the window we always go with, which is the month of March. It would be March 1st, 2024 through March 29th, which is the Friday of 2024.
Mr. Walensky, when you look at the provision, though, that said it's a minimum and a maximum of 30 days, I believe you said 13. You meant,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Well, for clarity, it's not written in the resolution either, the March dates, because I'm just clearing up. Oh, as presented. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. Any questions? Can we have a recommendation, please? Mrs. Alexander.
Be it resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the 2024 to 2025 Schools of Choice numbers as presented.
Mrs. Usinski, second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Alexander.
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma.
Yes.
Trustee Haynes.
Yes.
Trustee Jasinski.
Yes.
Trustee Cook.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Trustee Jaworski.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ms. Usinski.
Sorry, I did have a quick question. It doesn't affect my vote at all, but do you know how many schools of choice we had last year? You said we weren't near 230, but
I do happen to know that this past year we opened up 275 spots,
Okay.
knowing we wouldn't get that many. Interesting, 199 people applied for schools of choice. Ultimately, 138 came through and enrolled. So people will look around. They'll put their name in and consider Royal Oak or another district.
Sure.
They're not sure. But ultimately, we enrolled 138 students through schools of choice this past year. The year before, we enrolled 98 students in grades K through 8. The year before, 116. So right around 100, give or take,
yeah.
each year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mrs. Anderson.
This is not on our agenda, but just quickly, can we talk a little bit about the kindergarten information nights?
I have the date. I do have that date. It's going to be the evening of January 31st. All 6 elementaries will, on that same evening, hold kindergarten open house. Information night. It's not a prerequisite. It's not required. We encourage parents to go just to learn more about, especially first-time parents, with an oldest child entering kindergarten.
Any additional questions? Moving on to item 9, second public comment. First, same rules apply as the first time. Moving on to item 10, board comments and liaison reports. Mrs. Cook.
Yes, so I just wanted to report back. I was able to attend the Michigan Association of School Board Leadership Conference, and we had a number of sessions that we could go to over that couple of days that I was there. I was able to go to sessions. One was about biases and their impact in decision-making. So biases like you may know of confirmation bias, right? But also things like status quo bias, or one that I can't remember the exact name, but hit close to home, the best case scenario bias, where you think it's all going to go to plan. There were 7 different biases, and I thought it was very interesting. I also went to a session regarding teacher retention strategies. I went to a session put on by Ypsilanti Schools about equity. I went to a session, this isn't the name of the session, but mostly they were talking about different ways to collect data. Ferndale Public Schools had presented about that. And I also went to a session about My Data, which is a great resource for anybody who wants to know about various things about our school, the graduation rates, scores, population, all sorts of things are on the My Data. You can find it right on our website. I think they just added it because it used to be just budget and transparency, and now the rectangle's bigger and the My Data is on there as well. One of the participants mentioned that they really wish that people would go to that resource, as it is the most accurate resource for school data. So that was a really important session as well. And I will forward more information about all of the sessions that I attended to all of you.
Thank you. Ms. Jasinski.
I did just want to call, all of our upcoming holiday events are really, really important. But I did want to call attention to the MLK Day that Ms. Phillips did mention briefly. This is an event that we're really proud of. We partner with Berkeley schools and this year Clawson schools, which is really exciting. Last year it was hosted by Berkeley. This year it's coming back to ROMS. And so even though students do have the day off, right, we like to think of Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a day on, not a day off, right? It's a day that we're supposed to serve our community and be reminded about his legacy. It's just a really excellent event. So we would really hope to see some students and community members there to support us. I know I'll be there, but it starts with a really beautiful presentation and breakfast, of Freedom Walk, and then some service opportunities in the gym.
Thank you. And I know some of our elementaries have already started posting. I think Keller was one of them I saw, but they start to do some individual things at their schools as well. And they do it, I think, sometimes the Friday before as well. So it's a great opportunity. I'm glad the community is so engaged, and adding another partner this year is actually going to be very exciting. So I'm glad we keep that alive, so that it keeps moving forward. Any other, Mr. Jaworski?
Like Mrs. Cook, was also at the Michigan School Board Association conference last month. In addition to the classes that we took, I was the elected delegate from this board to the resolution committee on the night prior, which is why I was not at the meeting last month. And I'm excited to say that I was able to push our DI work and the beliefs of this district onto some of the policies that our professional association was trying to pass in resolutions. And we pushed them a little bit further, and we got them to include all people in a lot of the resolutions. It was a very exciting night for diversity and equity at the Michigan School Board Association.
Glad to hear that. Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, sorry, Mrs. Fitzpatrick.
Thank you very much. I just want to publicly invite our community to several upcoming events in January. For reference, if you look at our dispatch from December, you will see references to all of these, as well as details about start times and locations. But a few worth noting. Thank you for noting our MLK Day celebration. It was something that I became involved with back in 2017 when I was a member of the Berkeley School District at the time, and worked with the former superintendent here to organize this initial event. So I'm very proud to still be a part of it here. We do have on January 18th, it's a Parent Opportunities Fair, and it's a chance for our parents and our community members to come out to this building here at our administrative offices. We'll run 5:30 to 7:30. And with that, we will have several partners from our community, both groups that work alongside of the district out in the Royal Oak community proper, and those that are part of our district, some of our own departments and our own organizations. And it's really meant for families to come and learn more about the organizations right from the leadership of that organization. So more information is on our website, but it is definitely something that we want to make sure our parents come out to, especially those that are registering new kindergarten children, and that may be their first child and maybe not familiar. And also for parents who maybe have been with us for a while but want to learn more about the specialized programs that we have. So again, that's on January the 18th. Our kindergarten welcome night on January 31st will be hosted across all 6 elementary schools on that same evening, as Mr. Walensky said, and more information regarding that can be found from each of the individual schools. We also have a guest speaker coming. Nicole Runyon will be speaking about the impact of social media on adolescents, but it will really apply to children of all ages, and she will be a guest speaker in the district on January 29th. Right after school, she'll be working with a group of staff members and administrators right here in our boardroom, and then in the evening it is open to the public, and we are advertising that as well for family members, parents, any guardians, or just interested community members to come out and hear her perspective. Ms. Runyon was a guest speaker during our Lunch into Learning, not Lunch into Learning, in the summer. Oh, I thought I had the wrong program, but Launch into Learning that was held in August, and she was one of the featured speakers. And I believe I've mentioned before, her sessions were sold out in terms of enrollees, and her messages were very well received. And that's one of the main reasons why we are bringing her back to speak to both staff and to our community. It's a very important topic. And we have many students influenced and spending a lot of time on social media, and she has a very interesting perspective on that and just what that means for the child development. So I hope many of our community members can join us for these special events coming up.
Just a clarification question. So the parent community fair is 5:30 to 7:30? I was just looking because our sheet says 5 p.m. 5:30, okay. Thank you. Any additional questions? Moving on to item number 11, adjourn to closed session. Can I have a recommendation, please? Mrs. Alexander.
Resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education adjourns to a closed session to conduct a periodic evaluation of the superintendent as stated under Open Meetings Act, Section 8A.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please? Ms. Usinski, can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
Trustee Haynes?
Yes.
Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Yes, we've returned from closed session. Item number 12, Superintendent's Performance Evaluation. May I have a recommendation, Mrs. Alexander? Thank you.
Resolved that Royal Oak Schools Board of Education accepts the superintendent's evaluation as discussed with an overall effectiveness rating of effective. If the overall evaluation is effective or highly effective, then be it further resolved that the provisions of the existing employment contract for the superintendent dated April 13th, 2017, the contract as written is extended for an additional 1-year period through June 30th, 2027.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Mrs. Anderson, can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Haynes?
Yes.
Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
The motion passes.
And I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Mrs. Fitzpatrick, her team, but for her stewardship of this district and all that she does and all the work and the time and effort and that you put into this work and the passion and that you put into this district to care for our families, our students, our staff, and just so grateful to this opportunity to have you with us, knowing that many other districts aren't so fortunate, so I think we're quite fortunate to have you and appreciate everything that you do. Thank you. Number whatever, we're adjourned.